Okay. I guess we all met before. I'm DellaCamera from Cecarelli Farm in Northford, and I don't think I have anything. I mean, maybe a little more hilly than some areas of Connecticut, but we're on a hillside, and you can see here every time it rains, what happens. This is historically happened for years and years and years. These fields were always plowed for forever. So after watching this too many times, we had already adopted to zone tillage on our corn. So we were doing zone tillage, but it still left a lot of our vegetable ground wide open. So after, years and years of coming to the farm for this and giving all these neighbors new topsoil every time it rains, because like was said before, the rain events seem to be drastic now. It's no longer a little bit as we like, it's just over the top. So here's some more rushing down a hill, one of the hillsides. And I know it's not any more unique than other people around here have seen. Unfortunately, when you're in plastic rows, when we use the plastic mulch, those rows are on row. So every one of those plastic rows is essentially like a roof. So the alleyway's a gutter. So obviously, you end up with water just rushing down the hill. This is another part. The roads are still oriented this way. This just happened to stay up on top. Sometimes it would blow over the side and end up in the road. Here's another end of that field. This was after some of the reorientation was done through NRCS, and maybe the calculations weren't right, but we added a rock lined waterway up here to slow some of this water down, which now we get the water to come off that field. There's another one of the dirt to the neighbors, and this was before the rock lined waterway, and now this is still before the rock lined waterway. And here's what we had for. This is the way the field was always oriented. So down here is topsoil for the past 100 years, however they've been filling it, and down here is all the topsoil. That water you saw was down in here. So working with NRCS, they came out and helped us reorient the rows, which you can see here. Instead of the rows going this way, we moved them all. So this is relatively level. And through here, there's a waterway that goes through grass waterway to a rock waterway back to grass. And it's finally all basically healed up, and we're getting, you can see right through here. So now the water that's discharging over in this area is all clear. We were still having a little bit too much of an impact of the water with having every row growing like 10-row blocks. So what I had done is, at first, I just was using the side dresser to try to seed between rows, which we saw before in another presentation, which it worked okay, but it was still a lot of water to deal with. And it was time consuming with that cub. So I made this for the 3-point hitch. It's a hydro seeder, and I was hoping that was the option to hydro seed between the rows, which I did, but it wasn't that great of an option. The seed came up good. It was beautiful. That's in tomatoes that two different plantings. The tomatoes there because we just pruned them, and I figured it would be a good time to get it on before the stakes, but it ended up being too much work. The hydro seeder tank is not big enough, and you couldn't get more than 250 or 300 feet out of that tank. It was all automated from the cab. Just another implement I made that now sits in the corner of a barn and doesn't get used. That's more, the crabgrass took over in that, and the solution to crabgrass in the middle is to spray it. Everything looks beautiful there, but you still have a lot of too much water runoff. And, you know, tomatoes, the same thing. That's when the rows were still oriented the way that the water would run out. And to keep those row middles clean like that is great. It looks good, but if you got a rain event, then we got more mud. So, my decision is to stretch the rows out wider, leave every other row out. And after that, those rows are seated in the middle. You can't tell. And here's the drill that I own is a hay buster drill. It's actually a 10-foot drill that I've removed some of the row units off, which are fixed at 7.5 inches instead of 5. The good thing about this unit is, even though it has a center wheel, this carriage is hanging on a dolly. So this carriage goes up and down, but these rear wheels match identically 6 foot on center to my rear wheels of my tractor. So then I was able to do this. So with doing that, these row middles, I decided that I would do this and set the farm up that it's going to stay set up like that. So it's always going to move, you know, one way or the other. So we're always going not exactly the same direction, but always the same passes, instead of having, you know, to run across to other. Once they're all in the same direction, then every year I could just flip flop back and forth. And here's another picture of it just between the plastic rows.
What'd you plant?
I planted a bunch of different stuff in a bunch of different places. Some of them oats and red clover. Some of it had white clover, tillage radishes, just a whole bunch of different stuff. I don't really for that part. My best luck.
On the ones you planted, the oats.
Oats and the red clover. I had some of the red clover. I have a picture you'll see was pretty phenomenal between there. And the other reason all my workers started to like this even better, because there's more room to walk between these rows. I know there's a lot of room, and it seems like there's a lot of land wasted. There was many years we decided that, oh, we're going to take 10 acres over here and cover crop it, but we never got to. It was out of sight, out of mind. Here, it's right in my face. I have to take care of it every year. I have no choice. So now, when the oats get tall or the clover gets tall, we go through there and mow it, put it right back to where it belongs. Here, just another picture of a tractor going through, seeding that down. There it is, seeded. This is the field. We reoriented the rows. Everything's spaced out. The water pressure is so low now that the water that is coming off the field, by the time it gets through all the grass waterways we put in, it's clear. And that's what we were looking for. Here's the oats coming up, and oats and clover. I probably can't see, it's probably too dark in that picture. There's basil. You can see it's planted between all that. There's more of it coming up there. There's more there. Yeah, it suppresses the weeds, and then the tractors that we mow through there, I mean, this is what you end up with. And some people say it might steal the nutrients from under the plastic, but if it's stealing nutrients from under the plastic, I pulled those weeds out, and the oat weeds roots, they can't get that far. I'd rather have my topsoil than yeah. I could. I have
But your evaporation is down and everything.
everything.
Yeah,
And
that's
the even when it's really wet, it's, you know, I can still get in the fields. It's not like it used to be. This is a field.
How far are your tomato spaces from the roads?
They're What's that?
Were they about 7 feet apart?
No, my tractors are 6 foot on center. They're almost 11 feet,
Oh,
which is a lot, but my hope is in the end that I get better production out of that and,
yeah.
you know, and then some, I mean, just proof that there is enough production in those fields. So you asked about winter kill. I actually grew in the same rows 2 years in a row. So this is the clover that overwintered.
Yeah.
And I used a subsoiler, no-till drill, and a chisel plow, which I thought I had. So that's after I have a 3-row ripper I went through there with. I went through with a chisel plow. It's all set the same width, and a smaller 6 foot 3-point hitch disc in it. It worked it up enough so I could lay the plastic.
Yeah.
And then we get into the next problem is after I lay the plastic, that's what I have. So I schemed up this idea that I was going to buy these Gandy hoppers. They're got an electric driven motor. I mounted them on my plastic layer. So when I'm laying plastic, see, I come up with these crazy ideas and then they're the implementers. So I come up with these crazy ideas. Those hoppers were expensive. It cost me almost $6,000 for 3 of them.
Put down the black plastic. I went through and just did a little broadcast of the oats. And then, you know, here and here, and so I didn't have to go back and feed those, and then I put the black plastic over those, so oats don't grow under that plastic.
I don't want to go back though.
Huh?
I want to do one pass.
Oh. All right.
Especially on a Friday afternoon, Friday night, Saturday night, you want to go out
Oh, I
dancing.
love Friday night.
Yeah, if you want to go out dancing.
I don't dance.
Oh, you should.
Okay.
So
But I know.
this, everyone's seen these plastic layers. This is a fertilizer hopper we put on there years ago. It's this one was electric driven and it was sold by Rainsflow. That makes the plastic layer, and that saved us a ton of money too, because we weren't broadcasting fertilizer anymore. So I recently bought a new plastic layer. This is hydraulically driven, but I just transferred this setup to the other one. But this motor here is all gear driven, and there's all different seed cups you could put on it. Gandy sells it for both purposes of seeding and fertilizing, and it worked to be pretty good. It drops the seed right alongside this shank. You can see the tube comes down, so it mixes it all. You can see the oat seed right there. It mixes it all up, and then when those cover and discover the plastic, it just throws it back up. And that took care of that row middle problem, which fortunately I don't have a picture of that. Here it is. That was used on this. The squat, you can see the oats in there. So that plastic layer with the cedar was used there. Cool thing about this is I didn't terminate that rye. So that rye grew. We used bioplastic underneath there. When the squash plants when we were done picking it, I sent my guys up.
360 that. Whatever the name.
Yeah, it was one of those. So we still have to rip the drip tube out. So what I did was that 3-point disc arrow, run over it one time, send the guys out to pick up the tube. They picked up the tube. I went back and disked it one more time, and lo and behold, I don't know, maybe a week later, I went back there and all the oats had seeded themselves. So I got a free cover crop out of it. There's a picture of one of those fields I showed you. This is just, it was recently mowed down. I just wanted to show you a picture of that. Here's these are after the fact, mowed off. This might have, I forget what this had on there, but that's after a full summer of growing. And that was planted edge to edge with the planter before, at the end of the first year. And here is the fall time after we were done, or no, this was this spring. That's what came up for rye and the clover in there. And there is some issues like obviously if I use the rye, I have to use some sort of herbicide to knock that down. And this was a big mistake. I learned very quickly that was a problem. Because with the ripper and the chisel plow and the disc isn't enough to take care of that. So in order to get rid of this, the neighbor had some beef animals, so I took his disc line and mowed the whole field. He came around, baled it, and then that got it off the fields for me. It's kind of was a little counterproductive because I took away everything I grew, but then I was able to relay the plastic. And here's, like I said, Karen, this was terminated early in the spring, so it tilled up pretty nice. That was with a zone tiller, and then the disc, and then this is laying the plastic with in between the clover. And then this here is a field that we seeded for the first year. And here's a second year planting. See these oats have went through the plastic layer of cedar to come up in the row middles there. This was seeded after the first year. There's the slug I talked about earlier. See that slug? That's the road.
A lot of them.
What's that?
Did you have a lot of slugs?
They were all over the road. I just took a picture of that one.
Oh.
It was disgusting. And there's the clear water run down the road this year after the rainstorm.
No free turf.
No, neighbors got to get True Green now to come fertilize their lawn, not me. This was so that no-till drill that I have, I came up with this idea that I was gonna, the difference between the no-till drill that I have and the one that we saw today and some of the other ones, I have 3 boxes on there, so 2 separate large seeds, or a large seed and a fertilizer, and a small seed. So I decided that I was gonna cap off some of the row units and make some of the rows correspondingly drill rye, oats, and rye, so that it would winter kill and I could come back through with my. The learning thing with that was that rye is tall, and it might I don't know, maybe you guys might believe it or not, but that shaded it enough to mess the corn up. It was really more in the spring plantings because the way the sun, I guess, is hitting the ground.
Earlier.
Yeah, it wasn't, so it's something that if it was going to be done again, would probably benefit from it being knocked down. And here you can see the same thing. I'm planting in it with a planter that I customized. It's got all kinds of row cleaners and stuff underneath it. It planted in there, and here's the planting from the week before that was, terminated with Roundup and herbicide and pre-emerge herbicide. One thing, like I said, see how it's much taller here and this shade. The other problem is when it's tall like that, that grass ended up in some of the gears, so it threw some chains off, and that's just another, I guess, another fall off the bicycle. And here is that same field, different direction a few weeks later, and there it is a few weeks after that. Here's a different planter. This is a field that was terminated. No cover crop roller. I do have a roller like we saw today. I just didn't use it there. I thought I could seed with it. It seeded, but it was aggravating with the way it was cleaning the rows, how the rye fell all different directions.
How many years have you done that field this way?
This field here,
Yeah.
this was zone tilled corn for 5 years before this, and then it was the first year that I no-tilled the winter
So
squash.
you've only done it 1 year.
This field, yeah, I've done other fields.
So, you develop that mat from the no-till, the cover crop there, whatever you have, after a few years, doesn't that just get really heavy?
No.
It breaks it down, huh?
Not, it usually rots out, and there's what the row cleaners did, and there's what I ended up with,
Okay,
and there's what I ended up with for squash. And I wasn't, and that was this year. It wasn't bad. I suppose it could have been better. I suppose it could have been worse. And then there's two of my planters. This one here, I highly customized this one. I took it all apart. The only thing that's factory is the row units and the drives. It's sprayed, it's got herbicide tank in the front, sprays out the back. Row units are low till units, liquid fertilizer, seed treatments. This one here is a straight up no-till planter with the leading coulters that are for no-till. All your closing discs that are fingers for no-till. I like tractors. I like tools. I like implements.
no, you're better than me.
So I think that's the last picture. So I mean, I'm really into the cover crops, but where I fall short is exactly, and to tell you exactly what the right thing to use between those rows are. So I guess that's all trial and error. What's going to work best for me. But when a lot of times when people come to the farm or we have anything, one of the biggest things I harp on is you really need to know what you want and your end goal is, and don't make the mistakes of buying something that's not the right width or is not going to fit the operation. Know how, if you're a 5 foot on center farmer, then that's what you're going to be. So make sure it's going to work. And looking at some of the implements, like the drill we looked at today, it's a beautiful drill. Like I said, the way stuff's adjustable in the front, I'm kind of envious of that, but the wheels are not in the right place for someone, for my tractors, or for someone that's, maybe a 3-point hitch one might be different if it was straight up, but know what you want when you get ready. And I mean, another thing is too, a lot of times people say that won't work on my farm. I thought the same thing maybe when I started doing some of this stuff. That's not going to work, but it works.